You leave it alone. If it's a helping verb, you use the helping verb. Otherwise, you can't use the regular verb. You have to substitute a helping verb. If the sentence is positive, you make tag negative. Sentence is negative, you make tag positive. By the time you do that, your conversational partner is long gone. Okay? So this is really tough to do. These conditions are met only under certain very limited circumstances. Number one, when you give people a grammar test. When you're study the rule, you're focused on form, you have time to apply it. And our work, and this is in my best-selling book, soon to be a major motion picture, Second Language Acquisition and Second Language Learning, which came out in 1981. The subtitle is The Cure for Insomnia. Unless you're one of the 0.001% like me and a few other people, it's not going to be an easy read. It's also available online. Operators are standing by on my website, sdcrashen.com. D is for David, as in no David. Okay. So you can do it on grammar tests, and it's not a grammar test. We find people don't use grammar very much. The other reason for grammar is for language appreciation. That's another function from it that is completely separate, and that is an appreciation of the wonders of linguistics, etc. I have been in classes where teachers have presented grammar with both in mind. My favorite examples come from TPRS. My introduction to TPRS, Karen Rowan dragged me into TPRS classes. You gotta go to these things. And my Spanish teacher at the time, who's still my model of a wonderful teacher, is Jason Fritz. And I always go to his intermediate Spanish classes. And in one Spanish class, he paused and said in English, by the way, this little O at the end means past tense. It's called pop-up grammar. Now, if you want to use it as a monitor, fine. And you can, apply it, great. It's up to you. If you want to just appreciate it, fine. Also, Karen got me into Linda Lee's Mandarin class, who is also a true living master, in my opinion. And one time, Carol Gobb was in the same class. He's the owner of TPRS Storytelling, which turns out great materials. Linda paused and said, in Mandarin, we don't have an infinitive, we just string the verbs together, which is language appreciation. Carol and I, who really haven't quite recovered from our love affair from grammar, thought that was the most interesting thing anybody could say. The rest of the class, I think, just let it go by. So there we see the two functions. Oh, I left one thing out. Another place where the conditions are met is when we edit our writing. And there are certain places where our grammar of English is slightly different from the accepted grammar. And, like the difference between its and its, where the apostrophe goes there, and there, where the commas go and all that stuff. We don't always get it, and that's a good place to think of rules, but we can only do some of them. So to conclude this hour-long tirade, grammar isn't bad, it isn't evil, it's just hard to use, and we need to recognize that.
I don't disagree. Not at all. And in my best-selling book, Making Communicative Language Teaching available through McGraw-Hill.com, you can find some of the same ideas. I have to admit, I've known Steve for a long time. He does not remember this story probably, but I'll tell you. I'm back at Michigan State now. I first met you, Steve, in 1983. When you came to Michigan State, was my first job. And there was a conference that was hosted by, I forget who did it, the actual person on campus, but it was for African languages and the teaching of African languages. And you and I were at lunch with Trisha Dvorak and Janet Swaffer, and they organized the conference. And I was like a young whippersnapper trying to get started. And Steve gave me some great advice, which I shan't share with you right now. Don't you like that alliteration? Shan't share? That's good, huh? That's hard to do on the radio. I almost said something else. And so I remember though, Trish Dvorak being angry with Steve because Trish was starting to do her work on writing at that time. And her thesis was, what she was thinking about was, writing is a reflection of your reading. And that in order to be a good writer, you have to read a lot. And that the more you read, the more you write. And then Steve turns to her and says, and she was about my age, just getting started as well. Steve turns to her and says, oh, I just finished a book on that. It's coming out this year. She turns to him, she punches you on the shoulder, she goes, you shit. She didn't even know him. I thought that was a funny story. Anyway. Oh well. Anyway, so
Lisa says, if you read 1,000 books, your words will flow like water.
yeah.
They're beautiful.
Yeah, that's why I always read before I. Never mind. Okay.
Bill! Really? PG-13.
I didn't say anything. Okay, we're ready to take some questions for people. We want to speak. Walter, Dustin, who's doing this? Dustin is going to. Dustin DeFelice, our great muscle man there, is going to lead people up to the microphone that we're going to use for people to ask questions in the audience. So please don't be shy. In the meantime, Walter, are there any questions from out there, or Angelika, questions, comments out there that people?
Nothing on Twitter, other than shout-outs.
Okay, you have a question from email?
I do.
Let's start with one from email, and Dustin, start getting these. Okay, who's? I told you you're going to ask questions. Get up there. This poor guy in a nice
Benjamin
suit and
will
tie.
have to ask a question.
He's going to get up there a question or make a comment. Okay, so Walter, who do we have from out there?
All right, we actually
Gmail
have someone
land?
here. His name is Jason. Would you say then that most language classes are really language appreciation classes instead of opportunities to acquire language?
Well, that depends on the class, right? I mean, your classes aren't, my classes aren't, but what do you say, Steve? I mean, you did it.
A lot of them are.
They are, aren't
We
they?
don't have exact figures, but the comments I've heard on the internet, what's going on in classes, is that grammar translation is still with us. And grammar translation, as Jason pointed out, is introduction to linguistics.
Right.
And the 5% of kids who love it, 95% hate it. The 5% of kids who love it become grammar teachers, become language teachers. That's the problem.
You know, go ahead. You can say something else?
Yeah, I have a Twitter comment, because no, we're not coming in on Twitter. About a month ago, someone asked me, when are you going to be on Bill Van Patten's show? And I wrote back and said, well, Bill has already invited me, and I promise that when I get on, I will tell how Bill Van Patten played one of the world's great practical jokes on me.
Oh boy.
I still remember it.
Can't wait to hear this
Yeah.
Well, we were touring, Bill and I were touring Florida. You and I and another professor, what was her name?
Oh, God, I don't remember.
She was really pleasant. We had a great time. Yes. You're on Prozac. I'm on placebo. Check it out. Anyway, so we're on the same platform, and she spoke, and then it was me, then it was Bill. As I was getting up, and it was a slender platform without a board. You know, people could see your whole body. He says, "Steve, your fly is unzipped." It wasn't. I spent the whole time checking it out. That was an amazing practical joke. You have my admiration. That was amazing.
That was, well, I'm not the world's best practical
You're
joker,
good.
but I just,
That was great.
That was great. That was good.
Yeah.
Steve and I also shared this. You still have, well, I shouldn't bring that up. I'm not going to bring this other thing. We had a mutual, nothing bonds people together than a mutual disdain for something. And so we both were speakers one time in Kansas we were the keynote speakers for a TESOL, original TESOL thing. And we both looked at where they were putting us up, and we looked at each other and went, holy mother of God, can we get out of here? But well, I won't think more about it. The people were nice there. They were
I
great.
moved up. It's Motel 6 all the way from me.
All right. Before we, do we have somebody ready? Okay.
Yeah, Benjamin.
Benjamin.
All right, Benjamin, what's your question?
We only take first names, so don't worry. You're gonna get recognized by your friends out there. So
I had a question while you were talking, and my question is, what is the role of recognition, of repetition, and variation? Like you were telling the story about pop-up grammar. What is the role of recognizing, oh, that's repeated, and then this is a variation, and then when does descriptive grammar, pop-up grammar, cross the line and become explicit grammar?
So the role of repetition. Would you say that again?
The role of the recognition.
Repetition.
Oh.
Say it again.
I got it.
Of course you got it.
Okay. Good job. There's only 200 of us.
I'm not quite clear on the question. That's what I'm saying.
So like,
Boudon.
so you're pointing out the recognition. You're recognizing.
A
you're
grammar
pointing
rule.
out
A grammar rule?
A grammar. a repetition, a
Of anything.
structure,
A structure, okay.
It could be grammatical. It could be, yeah, let's just say grammatical.
Okay.
A grammatical structure, and you're using this as pop-up grammar. So you're, you know, like you just mentioned in your story, and then all of a sudden, you know, when does that cross the line and become explicit grammar?
Well, when does explicit grammar cross the line and become anything useful to us? The entire field of language, see how I'm diverting your question into something I want to talk about? The entire field used to be called applied linguistics. And applied linguistics was find out what the grammar of language is and then teach it to kids in class. So we really were applying the insights. And in those days when I was a grad student, I majored in Chomsky as a graduate student, which was blindingly wonderful and beautiful. And I always wondered why the ESL people didn't study Chomsky more to help them create their materials a lot better. And every time I read something new in grammatical theory, I said, oh, we'll make materials out of this. This is the foundation of grammar teaching. It's the foundation of English for special purposes, English for academic purposes. Describe all this stuff and then teach it. And as Bill began, there is this is the most important, I think, idea that we've been pushing. There is no evidence that consciously learned language becomes subconsciously acquired. It cannot enter the system like that. At best, no matter how many times you see it, consciously learned stuff is going to be limited. It's going to be monitored, and it's going to be at best, and it's going to be very hard to use. Again, it's not evil, and it could help you appreciate language and see it being acquired. Another question that really hasn't been answered in the field that people keep asking me is whether consciously learned knowledge can make input more comprehensible.
Yeah,
I think it's quite possible.
I get that question too. It can, but my own research on the application of explicit knowledge, for example, during sentence processing, suggests that it's incredibly limited, that you can actually use that in real time anyway. So, you know, that's what they were in Salt Lake, take that idea, that it's certainly researchable. I would just add one more thing before we take another question, is that, I forgot what the hell I was going to add. Steve, you do this to me all the time.
I know.
My God, you're like a shot of tequila. What? What? What was I going to say? What? Who? What? Oh, anyway, I'll think of it later. Oh yeah, I know. I just remember what I was going to say. He said something about there's no way that conscious knowledge can become implicit knowledge, and he's absolutely right. Because as the tour I've been doing this year in lots of my talks has been arguing that there are no rules to begin with. From a generative perspective, from a current linguistic theory perspective, there are no rules in your head. What's in your head is something different, quite different. And the rules on a page don't exist in your head, so there's no way for those rules to become that. You're dealing with apples and oranges, and so we have to get rid of that whole explicit, implicit stuff, and explicit to become implicit, because it just can't. It's just, I'm going to say it like that, it just can't. There, I said it. Okay.
Thank you, Benjamin. I think you need to do a teabag toss too.
Oh yeah, teabag toss. Okay, throw a
Standing
teabag.
right
Come on,
there,
teabag
right
toss.
there, right there.
Teabag
you
toss.
did?
Come on,
Okay.
teabag toss out there. Come on, do your job.
He has one. Are we doing a teabag toss? Teabag toss! Oh, wow, they don't toss well.
Okay, there we go. All right, for those of you out there not here, we're tossing teabags in the audience. Okay, before we take our next question, I want to give a big shout out to ACTFL for letting us do this here.
Yay!
Now, bigger applause now in order for Carmen Coggins, who's been running the social media lounge here. She was very helpful in letting us set up and helping us set up. She's been great giving us a space, so give a big, big round of applause. Okay. All right, and who do we have over here at the table?
Hi, my name is Daniela Bashilio.
First names.
Daniela.
Sorry, just Daniela. I don't have a last name. And
My baloney has a first name.
I am from the University of Oklahoma, where I teach. Go Sooners! Go Sooners! Where I teach SLA, methods, Italian, a whole bunch of other stuff. So, hello, SLA and methods students, you're wonderful. Okay. So my question is actually about some of the names that we throw around. Even the term acquisition. So are we doing sort of an injustice calling it acquisition? Because it has me thinking of that term as a commodity, as an object to be sort of digested, consumed. And so when I talk to my students about this, even about the notion of, I'm going to throw a wrench in it, about input and output, that they're these sort of, it's sort of objective in this way, when we know that development, obviously it's not a ladder, it's not getting from step 1 to step 2, but it is much more like rock climbing. You go up, you go down, sideways, and so on and so forth. Should we change second language acquisition to second language development, for instance?
Let me tell you the secret of having a successful career and why you're in the right track. I wouldn't use the word development because it's too clear. What you want to do, which has worked for me, is come up with terminology that's just a little vague so people, they don't quite understand. So people think you're a lot smarter than they are. My greatest triumph was I+1. No one has any idea what it is. They keep misinterpreting it. But things like, I've invented a lot of terminology, and sometimes it's my idea, sometimes it isn't, but everyone thinks it's my idea. So I get the credit and lots of invitations. So you're on the right track, okay? I should say right now, affective filter didn't come from me, it's from Dulé and Burt, but everyone thinks I did it. So come up with a term that's a little bit confusing, and you've got it made. That captures this back and forth and jigsaw and up and down and U-shaped stuff.
Yeah, just call it second language rock climbing.
Too comprehensive.
I'm with you though. I don't use the word development for a variety of reasons. But,
I do sometimes, but I think it's too clear.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about developmental stages and developmental sequences for a reason. But yeah. Thank you, Daniel. That was a good question. Thank you so much. We're still waiting for someone to step up for the SLA challenge. So whenever you want to take your little quiz, just let us know.
Mike, FLA challenge.
But we have somebody. We have another question. How are we doing on time, Angelika?
Oh, you got 3 minutes.
Okay, because I gotta do a commercial break in about 3 or 4 minutes. So.
And I get 30 seconds.
Okay, there we go. Okay, who do we have at the end of the table here?
My name is Mikey.
Hey,
I'm
Mikey.
From Phoenix,
Hey,
Arizona.
Mikey. I think Mikey called into our show once before.
Yes.
Yeah, the episode that did not record. That was my claim to fame. But luckily, I guess I'll embarrass myself now. You asked me what coffee I drink, and I had to admit that I drink iced coffee from McDonald's, which
I remember
was embarrassing.
that.
It wasn't even cool like Starbucks or something cool.
Cheap.
That's a travesty. That's right up there with wine
Affordable.
spritzers. I bet you drink wine spritzers, Mikey.
I do not
Wine
drink.
spritzers. Seriously.
She's
But I
a
would.
travesty. I'm from Northern California. That's a travesty to wine.
I'm from Germany.
You don't
That's
do
totally
that
normal.
to wine.
Of
Yeah.
course you do. You can drink way more.
Oh no.
Good for you.
Wine spritzers.
Yeah,
No, don't. Literally, he's talking about me behind my back.
Yeah.
Look at that. Literally. You those out there who are in the audience, he's leaving behind me to talk to Angelika. It ain't gonna work. I'm gonna pull you back to your chair, Steve. All right, Mikey, what's your comment? What's your question?
Okay, so you wrote an article, Where Are the Experts?
Uh-oh.
And I happened to share that with Dr. Krashen.
Uh-huh.
And so really what I'd like to hear from both of you is the comment on that article. If you could talk to us a little bit about what was in that article, and I'd love to hear both of you comment on your thoughts on that article and the profession that we are all passionate about.
Okay, thank you for the question. I'm probably going to get in trouble with this. No, I'm not going to get in trouble. But anyway, I wrote this white paper that was published in the journal Hispania by the fabulous organization AATSP. Anybody here a member of AATSP? Okay, if you're not a member of it, you should be. Even if you don't teach Spanish or Portuguese, join anyway.
Can you tell them what it is, Bill?
Yeah, AATSP is the American Association of Teachers. You could have done this, Walter.
Oh, my voice is sounding so great.
I know. Okay, yeah. When you win your prize with a date with Walter tonight, just make sure you don't kiss him because you might get something contagious. I don't know what he's got, but anyway. Although my prayers did come true, you know, Walter Hopkins finally has laryngitis. I am so happy.
Come on, Bill. Be nice.
Anyway, so I published this paper in March of this year in Hispania, and it's called Where Are the Experts? And I basically was asking the question about typical departments of languages in universities across the country, and asking the question about if our concern is about language acquisition and proficiency and so on in our language curricula, who is driving the bus of this proficiency trip we're taking? And so I did an analysis of schools that give PhDs to find out how many of these schools actually have people like myself, like Steve, like other people like us, in the departments, training graduate students who are going to go out and be the next professoriate and so on. And what I found was that the population within Spanish is about 8%. So 8% of the faculty in Spanish across the country do something like what I do or what Steve does. And in French, it's even lower. It's like, actually Spanish I think is like 6%, and in French it's like 2%. And so the question I was raising is that how are we going to make changes in university level language teaching if we don't have enough people going around who can talk about language teaching and language learning from a contemporary, and I do mean contemporary, well for us it's not contemporary, he's been talking about this for 40 plus years, I've been talking about this for 30, well maybe not quite 50 years. You've been around a while, Steve. I don't want to give your age away. He looks pretty good for 105, doesn't he?
I read at the 110 level, though.
And I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've seen the progress at the university level be excruciatingly slow. And now I'm attributing that to the sociology of the profession. There's so few of us who can really, truly make an impact. And that was basically the thesis of the paper, was asking where are the experts and how can we get more of them into the profession.
My comment is the experts are right here in this audience and at this conference, and if you want to read about them, I have some places, not in the professional journals so much that we know about, they're still there to a great extent, but there are other alternatives. Write this down, IJFLT.com, International Journal of Foreign Language Teaching. It's free, it's open access. That's the name of the game for me. We ought to be able to afford this stuff. These journals are just too expensive. The books are too expensive. So we're doing something about it. And Steve Krashen's website to show you that I didn't die 15 years ago. All this stuff is on in journals over there. I've been more productive since I've retired. You're going to love it, Bill, in 30 years when you reach the age and you can do that.
Oh my
It's
God.
good. It's going to be wonderful. So I've been very productive. There's lots of stuff coming out all the time. sdkrashen.com. We're working in literacy. We're continuing to work in second language. I have some articles on animal language about a talking parrot that I have actually met. And I'm working on a new field called exolinguistics. What happens when the aliens land from Zeta Reticula? How will we talk to them? What is Star Trek's take on this?
I speak Zeta Reticules.
Yes,
They can talk to
speak Klingon. Yes, exactly. Na'vi. A friend of mine actually did the Na'vi language.
Really?
Yeah, it was amazing. Paul Fromer, and there are people who have met each other and speak only Na'vi. It's all they have in common. It's great. So the answer to all this is to look outside, the normal, the regular stuff. Look at the online open access journals. Some are predatory, but many are very, very good. And you see the field has been moving along.
Yeah, and we got things like Tea with the BVP to reach out to people.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
we're doing it. That's
Totally
free.
agree. Totally agree.
Speaking of free, it's time for a commercial break, so bear
Thanks,
with me while I do
Mikey.
this. Thanks, Mikey. Nice to see you in person. I know where you live.
That was not a threat.
Okay, well, everybody, the Thanksgiving is next week, and it's going to be Black Friday. It's that time of year when people push and shove their way into Walmarts, Macy's, and Best Buys as they trample each other in a reindeer-like stampede to grab that special bargain before stock disappears like a pumpkin pie at Oprah's house. Would you like to avoid the holiday shopping delay? Would you rather stay at home watching your favorite holiday movies with a box of Kleenex on the Lifetime channel? If so, then give the gift of tea with BVP. It's cheap and it's no hassle. Simply sign a friend up for our newsletter at teawithBVP.com and add a little note that says, thinking of you and what you need for the new year. And if you want to spice it up, here's something else for that loved one of yours. Download one of our recorded shows from iTunes and attach it to your holiday digital, get personal email message. It's great to listen to while relaxing in the tub, running off those holiday ham pounds on the treadmill, or while trying to drown out those yammering noises coming from family members who wait until this very special time of the year to demonstrate morphological composition by adding dis into dysfunction. Again, Tea with BVP is free and it's easy, and there are no lines. Simply go to teawithBVP.com and you're a click away from the best stocking stuffer ever. So do it, and your friends and colleagues will thank you for the best gift. Tea with BVP. We bring new meaning to ho, ho, and ho. Okay, all right. We have somebody who's ready for the SLA challenge. Do we have? Okay, In honor of our special guest, Lizette's going to take the SLA challenge quiz. There's 3 items. She gets them all right, she's going to win a prize. I will tell you in a minute what it is. It's not really a date with Walter. And in honor of our special guest, these questions all have to do with Steve Krashen. So are you ready?
Okay.
What was the name of Steve's first pet? No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Number 1, you ready, Lizette?
I am.
Okay, get close to the microphone so everybody can hear you. We need to record you.
Okay.
Get really close.
Really close.
There you go. There you go. Pretend it's Walt. Pretend you're on a date with Walter. Get close to it. Okay. Great. Which of the following is a construct within Steve Krashen's theory about language acquisition? A. And don't be like Eric and jump the gun. Listen to all responses, okay? A. N+1. B. The input hypothesis. C. The explicit-implicit distinction. D. None of the above.
Can I call a friend?
First question, she needs a lifeline. You can see if someone in the audience can help you with that.
The input hypothesis.
Oh, there you go. Ding, ding, ding. Is that right?
Can I get a high five?
Okay. Hang on a sec. Okay, question number two. Here we go. Which of the following would Steve Krashen probably not say or not agree with? Okay. A. Grammar instruction can alter acquisition orders. B. Monitoring is limited by time constraints and knowledge. C. A main role for language teachers is to provide good input to learners. D. None of the above.
You see my short-term memory? I'd say A.
A. Is that right? Yes, it is. Steve would not agree with grammar instruction
Nice.
can alter acquisition.
Thanks for putting the right answers first. That really helps.
Wow. We'll see on this next one, okay? All right. You get this third one right, Lizette, and you win a prize. Right now, you got a tea bag. You're going to give you a tea bag, but she's making eyes at Walter. Did you see that?
I did.
I've already
Blowing
said
kisses.
you do not get a date with Walter tonight. Okay, number 3. Fill in the blank based on what Steve Krashen has said. Blank cannot become acquisition. A. Practice. B. Learning. C. Output. D. None of the above.
Output.
Everybody? I'm sorry, Lizette. Even though he might agree with that in a certain sense, what he's actually said is learning cannot become acquisition.
No.
But, you know,
Can I do 3 out of 4?
but if you give Walter a kiss for extra credit, I will give you the prize. Okay, and here's Lizette's prize. Here's Lizette's prize. She gets a
Hey, Lizette, thank you.
Steve wants to make a comment about that
Yes,
quiz.
I followed the advice that I gave Danielle a little while ago with the input hypothesis. I get credit for it, but because I coined the phrase, but it's of course not my idea. People had it first. I'm going to pretend to be modest here. Frank Smith, Ken Goodman knew all about it in whole language. We learned to read by reading. And in the field of second language, people like James Asher, Harris Winnitz, Leonard Newmark knew about it before I did and talked about it. And I just attached a term to what they said. Okay.
Does anybody out there in the audience recognize any of these names that Steve just mentioned? Leonard Newmark, is that you do? That's because you read, right? Or read older. Because one of the, Sue Gass and I were talking about this one day at a meeting, and we said that because we're part of this older generation, and we've been around in second language acquisition for a long time. And we noticed the younger people getting their PhDs right now don't really know the history of the field. And they haven't read some of the great, they haven't even read S. Pitt Corder's famous Significance of Learner's Errors, which I make all my students read. They have to read that for any course they take. They don't read Larry Selinker's Interlanguage. And so we need to make sure that these names and these constructs and these people stay alive because they're part of our history. SLA is only about 50, 60 years old, but it's rich with a lot of theorizing. And I'm going to say the following, that things that S. Pitt Corder said, things that Larry Selinker said, and things that Steve Krashen said in the first days of SLA have not changed. What we do now in SLA research and SLA thinking is pretty much a response to everything the three of them ever said. And so we owe the field to those three people. And so I just thought I'd say that, Steve.
Just to give a little more history, it turns out I went to my aunt and uncle's wedding anniversary, 50th anniversary. My uncle's name is Boris Newmark, and there was Leonard.
Get out of
We
here.
have the same aunt and uncle.
Get out of here.
Okay.
Jesus.
Not only that, I was
What are
at,
the odds?
Wait, it gets even more interesting. I was at Ken Goodman and Yetta Goodman's house a long time ago, Phoenix, and I stayed over at their house, and we were sitting around, and Ken asked Yetta, "Would you tell the story of your family history?" And she does it like Kunta Kinte. She does it in Yiddish, and she says who she is, and she says, "I'm Yetta, original name, maiden name, and my family comes from a little shtetl called Ledizhenker." And I said, "Say that again." By the way, her Yiddish was very comprehensible to me. Ledizhenker, that's where my father's family comes from. It's a tiny little shtetl of about, I'd say, 3,000 people. We're probably relatives. And the Goodmans and I are criticized in the same breath all the time. So both sides, both second language and literacy, we're all connected genetically and intellectually. It's
There you go.
amazing.
Next thing you know, I'm going to find out I'm related to Steve Trasham. I got to get a blood test. No, I thought you were going to tell us that you're related to Benny Goodman. That's where I thought the story was going. No. Pull out your clarinet.
Clarinet, that's right.
Okay, we have a question on Twitter, right?
Yes,
Angelika?
indeed.
Okay, let's hear the question.
Catherine is asking, why is there such a rift between input-focused language learning and teaching practices and the rest of the CLT world?
Ooh, why is there a rift? I didn't know there was a rift.
This is a good chance to do some definition of terms, which
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah, you take that one first, and then I'll go after you.
Okay, there's a confusion. The term communicative is sometimes linked to stuff that we do. Oh, this is communicative. Natural approach, TPR, TPRS, it's all communicative. No, the word communicative, it technically means language teaching based on comprehensible output, trying to get your idea across, talking a lot, etc. It's actually the mirror image. It's trying to make yourself understood to people, which some people think is the way that you acquire language. So this is a very serious confusion.
Yeah, and actually, I have tried to undo that. The book that Jim and I did in 1995, and then the second issue came out in 2003, Making Communicative Language Teaching Happen, actually defines communication as the interpretation, expression, and negotiation of meaning in a given context, i.e., we're talking about classrooms, right? And what we put emphasis on is that there are two sides of communication, interpretation and expression. And a learner's job in the early stages is largely interpretation. So we're focusing on the role of input in the classroom in communicative language teaching, and not so much this idea of always trying to make learners speak right away. And so the problem that we have is that communicative language teaching has never had a good working definition of communication. So we tried to put that in and show people how you can work with that to make sense of what it is that you're doing. So I think that the riff that who's the Catherine. I think the riff Catherine's talking about is precisely what Steve says, is that people hear communication and I think it means make the students talk. And Jim and I say, no, communication involves both interpretation and expression. So in the early stages, teachers are the expressors of most of the meaning, and students do a lot of interpreting. That's their job in language acquisition and beyond. So anyway, there you have it. Thank you, Catherine, for that question. Any more questions from now? How are we doing on time? I don't have a watch today, Walter, my phone to look at that.
17 minutes.
Oh,
We're
good. So we got some good time.
Actually, on Twitter, Walter got a shout out for his voice too.
Oh my God! I keep telling him he sounds like Lauren Bacall today. Doesn't he sound like Lauren Bacall? Speak. Say something like it.
It's not coming out.
Just say. You know how to whistle, don't you? You put your lips together and blow. Say that.
You know how to whistle, don't you?
Put your lips together. I swear, I close my eyes, it sounds like Lauren Bacall. I swear. I feel like Bogey sitting over here listening to my talk. Okay, we have another question from the audience here. First name only, please.
Hi, my name's Joe.
Hey, Joe. Where are you going with that gunny? Oh, sorry.
Never heard that.
I know, I had to do it to you. I knew you probably did that like 3 times a day.
It's true. I'm a elementary and middle school Spanish teacher in Michigan, and
what part of Michigan?
The Metro Detroit.
Oh my God, you see the snow we're getting today?
I did, yeah.
Okay, I'm glad I'm going home tomorrow.
I'm glad I'm here.
It's all shoveled by the time.
Yeah.
I just all stay here.
So my question is sort of two-pronged, but seems to have been a proliferation in recent years of elementary Spanish programs, and I think most people in the field would say that they don't have very much time with their students, sometimes 1 or 2 sessions a week. And my question is 2 parts. One, do you think that programs like that have value? And the second part is, given those limited time constraints, other than advocating for more time, what do you think teachers should do with their time to maximize it for language acquisition?
That's about 8 questions in one. Very
I know.
good.
Sometimes
Yeah.
this happens to me in the show. I get these dissertation-like questions.
Very good, very
And
good.
people want to laugh for 5 minutes. You know?
Yeah, give it a brief shot. First of all, in terms of foreign language in the elementary school, the general public idea is that the earlier you start, the better, and it's magic. And no, it's not true. Older is faster. Before puberty will give you better accent in the long run than after puberty, but older is much quicker. If you want to be efficient, I would say start around age 9, 10, and not with preschool, etc. But there's nothing wrong with the programs. A lot of them are wonderful. The kids like it. They get a good attitude for it. And if you could pump in 2 sessions a week of really high quality, compelling, comprehensible input, like TPRS.
Yay!
Okay. Yeah, it's fantastic. I would love 2 hours a week of comprehensible input in the language of my choice. I think it's great. A little bit about TPRS. I get a lot of credit for Natural Approach, undeserved, because it was Tracy Terrell's work, but I get credit for it anyway, and I love it. It's wonderful. TPRS is better. Thank you, Blaine Ray.
Yes. Excellent. And by the way, speaking of TPRS, before I forget, Steve and I are going to be together this next summer at the IFLT, the International Forum on Language Teaching Conference, which will be held at, where's it going to be? It's in
Chattanooga.
Where's it? Chattanooga. I knew it was in Tennessee somewhere. So right here, those of you in the audience can see this. Go by the TPRS booth and pick up one of these.
Bill, piggyback on that. While you're in Chattanooga, come a little early and come to another session related to the conference, put on by Fluency Fast. Go to fluencyfast.com, where we're actually offering some intensive classes, and you're going to love it.
There you go. But let me just go back to Joe for a minute, this question about this K through 6 stuff. Because you used the word value. You said, what value? And that's always the key to things, how people interpret what value means. Everything that these kids would get involved with is valuable, no matter if it's 2 hours a week or 1 hour a week or 3 hours. It doesn't make any difference. It's all valuable. It depends on what kind of spin you put on it. Because I think, as Steve said, if the kids are liking it and they want to do more later on, that is where you need to be. Because one of our jobs as language teachers is to get people excited about language. And there's no more way to get them excited about language for them to see, to make some progress and do some things and say, look, even if I can only speak 2 or 3 words at a time, I can do that. And we need to show parents, we need to show administrators that these things are very positive things, and we're creating positive attitudes toward language and language acquisition.
Well, for once, I agree with you.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go. I know the day was coming.
Yeah. If we have one goal, it's wanting more later on.
Yep.
That is all that counts. That's the major thing. And I'll tell you something that nobody else knows except me and Darcy Pippin, who's sitting here in the first row. She has managed in teaching Spanish in the high school to get a large number of her kids to go all the way and take the AP test all the way through, to go through the whole program. And the percentage that she's getting to actually do it is about, at least 5 times as what we're getting in the national average. This is what counts. Are they continuing? One of the things we're very concerned is, how do you make someone a lifetime reader, not just a reader to get through an exam? How do you make someone want more? Thanks for bringing that up.
It's like my mother always said too, in response to Joe's question is, leave them weak and begging for more. That's what we want to do.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
Have
you.
a great rest of the conference. Before we forget, we had a selfie contest going on, Selfie with BVP. How many of you participated in that? How many took selfies? Some of you out there did, right? Okay, well, we have a winner. And I shouldn't say winner, that sounds bad. It's like the Academy Awards. We have a recipient. The prize goes to the selfie that we selected. The prize goes to, you ready for this? Drum roll. Speaking of IFLT, it goes to Carol Gabb.
Yeah, go Carol.
Is my get a prize at Date with Walter?
Actually, we have a prize. I will have to mail it to you because we're going to mail it to you, but you're going to get a very nice prize.
I just want to know if it's going to come in plain paper.
By the way, Carol Gobb is the reason I'm here. Carol Gobb, the owner of TP, our storytelling, has facilitated and make sure I could be here. We did a co-presentation. Thank you, Carol. TP, our storytelling, really nice stuff. Good
Yes.
books.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Okay, we have time for what? One more. We got somebody at the table here ready to ask the question. How's we doing on time? So, again, I don't.
10 minutes. We're
Okay,
good.
We got time enough for one more good question. Is it a question or a comment?
It's a question.
Okay. No. Next question, please.
Okay, my name is Jan. I'm from Minnesota.
Hey, Jan from Minnesota. What part of Minnesota are you from?
Delano, which is outside Minneapolis.
Oh, okay. I don't know that. I know Eden Prairie. That's the only place I know outside of Minneapolis. So.
Okay, well, my question is going back to sometimes a hot button word, output.
Uh-huh.
That was part of the challenge quiz that we had here today.
Yep.
And in my teacher seminar workshops, I often quote Dr. Krashen here that output is not language acquisition, it's the evidence that language acquisition has occurred. And so sometimes very erroneously people think that a CI, a comprehensible input classroom, the students never speak and the students never write. And this is part of the confusion out there in the general public. So could you clarify what is the role of output in the language development process?
I'm going to let Bill do this because he said it very well in his writings. I really do.
Really think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to hand it to you.
Well, yeah, I can't remember what I said now. Maybe I should. Why don't you quote me now? I'll see if I.
What Bill said. Yeah, output doesn't cause language acquisition,
Right.
but it certainly can help you get more comprehensible input. If you talk and you're lucky, someone might answer back and say things that are relevant. And it can help control what the conversation is about, let the person know what level you're at, etc. So it helps indirectly, not necessary. Theoretically, it's not necessary. Theoretically, you could do the whole thing by just listening and reading, but practically, it's a very wonderful way of getting comprehensible input.
Exactly. And if you go back to our definition of communication that Jim and I use in our book, for example, the interpretation, expression of meaning in a given context. When a learner answers you with one or two words, that learner is telling you what he or she has understood that you've said, or from some other interlocutor. And so that kind of minimal output that's appropriate for the level of the learner, is that back channeling to the other person that, yes, I'm being understood. And so the conversation keeps going, or adjustments are made so that the person gets better language directed to him or her. And so our response is that output as part of the natural communicative process is fine as long as it's level appropriate.
You don't force it.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to get students to speak in complete sentences, but if a student can say yes, no, or if you say, was this a dog or a cat? It's a dog. That's appropriate response for that question if that question is appropriate for what you're doing at that point.
We owe a lot of this to Tracy Terrell, natural approach.
Yes.
Made these things acceptable.
I miss Tracy.
Oh my.
Oh my
Oh my
God.
goodness, yes.
What a wonderful man.
Absolutely.
Love that guy.
He was. He changed my life in the early 80s when he
Great guy.
came to Minnesota for a workshop that I fortunately was able to attend.
He and I were actually going to work on a project together. We started talking about at an ACTFL once, back in '89, I think it was, and we laid out the project and we're giving ourselves a year to start working on it. Then he got ill, and then unfortunately he passed away not too long after that. We never got to work on the project. I was really devastated by not being able to work with him.
I'd like to add a comment about output is the motivational factor. This is what I've seen in the classroom, that when the situation is set up so that students are going to be able to speak and write and be successful and feel good about it, the motivational factor is very high. Because without that opportunity, the students don't know that they know. And their eyes get big and they just like, wow, it's like, look, Ma, no hands, I can do it.
It makes you feel like a member of the club, people who speak Spanish, which is good. Brief word about writing. Writing doesn't cause language acquisition. If you write a lot, you won't be a better writer. But writing's terrific. It makes you smarter. You write it down on the page, you can come up with better ideas, revision. So all these things are good. It's just not how language is acquired.
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Jan.
Don't forget our website, everybody. Has everybody gone to teawithBVP.com? We launched a new website this week. Have you seen it? Our beautiful faces are on there, Angelika, BVP, and Walter. You have to read our little mini biographies and blurbs on that. So get your friends to sign up for teawithBVP.com. Get our newsletter. Again, it only comes once a week, so it's not like you're going to get flooded with emails like I get from Hillary Clinton every day. I do. My gosh.
Yeah, I know.
Oh gosh, I got an email from Bill Clinton today. Would you like to have dinner with me? I'm like, no, no, I don't have dinner with you. I don't have dinner with you. Okay, how are we doing on time?
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Actually, maybe we can take one other quick question from Twitter.
Okay, let's tweet about this.
Barbara is asking.
Barbara Streisand's calling in?
Yeah,
Awesome.
right?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Well, Barbara is asking, can you name the SLA heavy hitters?
Heavy hitters?
Yeah.
What is
Yes,
heavy
I
hitters?
can. Blaine Ray.
Ah, okay.
Yes. Teachers of the Year, Grant Belanger, Darcy Pippin. These are the heavy hitters. This is the new progress that's happening is through application, through actually showing how it's done in classrooms, and that is having a positive influence on researchers. These are the heavy hitters right here and now.
Well said. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Michelle Whaley, thank you.
And Leslie.
Leslie Davidson, you're here, Leslie. Okay, yes, thank you.
Jason Fritz.
Yeah, Jason Fritz.
Wow, the names just keep rolling in. I like
tell
it.
you, that's
I
great.
like
Christy
it.
Placido's here too. These are the heavy hitters, in my opinion.
Yeah.
People have changed my thinking, actually, focused me.
And that's hard to do. It's very opinionated.
I disagree.
But it's well informed. It's well informed. Okay, no more questions, no more comments from the audience. How about a quick teabag toss before we come on? Teabag toss.
Teabag
Come on.
toss. Come on. There is actually one other question on Twitter from Christy. She is asking, do ACTFL's